Okay. Well, good morning and welcome to the February Mayor and City Managers Press Conference. This is an opportunity for us to visit with you and bring up some issues that we've been working on and kind of give you some updates. And so we share the topics between the city manager, and also joining us today is Councilman Spencer Duncan. He has some information we want to share. I think people would be pleased to get some updates on. So we'll get started, and City Manager, if you can start a little bit about on what you are doing right now with the budget. That's our big focus right now.
Having a blast.
No, I bet you are. Yeah.
So I know that since last summer, we've been sharing with the governing body some challenges that we're expecting with our budget in FY26 and 27. When I say some challenges, we are looking at projected shortfalls, budget deficits of $17 million and $21 million, respectively, for each of those years. Luckily, we identified this last summer as a challenge and have been very engaged with the governing body on discussions on how to address that shortfall or projected deficits. We've looked at everything from reductions throughout each of the city's departments. We've looked at efficiencies within the city's departments. We've talked about sales tax initiative, potential sales tax initiatives to fund some of our existing services, but then to also be able to identify additional funding for areas that we have not previously funded, such as affordable housing and homelessness, significantly funded with some of those initiatives. So we were, as of the last couple of weeks or so, beginning of the month, we were looking at asking for City Council to consider a vote for sales tax initiatives, but given feedback from the governing body as well as from the community, we thought there were some things that as a city team we needed to do first before we could, in good conscience, ask the public to consider additional sales tax revenues. And some of those things that the team and I continue to work on include big things such as selling the hotel. I know that the hotel is definitely one of the things that always comes up when it comes to our budget. So the team and I definitely understand the importance of selling the hotel. I've shared in the last several weeks that based upon some of the stories and articles that have gone out, the public knows that we are vetting 6 proposals. We are working through those proposals, and it is one of my strategic goals for this year to sell the hotel, and that's definitely come loud and clear from the governing body as a priority. And God willing, hopefully, with the goal of doing that by the end of the second quarter, at least having a deal in place by the end of June. So we are working very feverishly through those proposals, but again, trying to get that off the books this year for sure. Some of the other things that we'll be looking at to address our budget deficit. Again, looking through those efficiencies, looking through some potential reductions within departments. We're looking at a number of vacant positions. Obviously, we'll look at vacant positions first, see where we can do without some of those budgeted positions. We are looking at a hiring freeze. We actually put a hiring freeze in place at this point for the rest of the year, so that way we continue to look at positions as they become vacant to see how and if we can absorb some of the duties within existing staff members. So those are some of the things we're also doing. And then also one of the things too, and I know I need to share this with the governing body, but we have potential to maybe look at ways to restructure our debt that may provide some additional relief as far as operating dollars for us. So all of those things we will be working with the governing body in work sessions. One of the things that I definitely have to be grateful for is that the governing body has been working very closely with the staff and me throughout this process. Typically, you don't start a budget process till June-ish timeframe, May, June. And we've been working on this since probably since last July for the 2026 budget process. So So it's definitely it's definitely going to be a collaborative process with the governing body, with the community. Definitely want to hear feedback from the community as we move forward. But yeah, the budget we're in full scale moving forward with it.
I appreciate that. I think you can appreciate the challenge that a budget for a city of our size presents. And it's important to note that I know some people kind of get the idea that maybe it's the city manager's budget and the council just kind of sits there and tears it apart or picks and chooses the things they like or don't like. That's not what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to do is really get the entire governing body involved in the efforts to look at how we can think differently, how we can prioritize, and at the same time, not just toss things away, but maybe put them on a different time schedule. But it is important for me, and I think it's important for the entire governing body, is that we are unified in the effort, that everybody takes their part and does what they can to help bring us to a place where we can continue to see things happen in a positive way for the city of Topeka. We are not in a standstill, status quo situation. We are moving forward, and I hear it every day when I'm out in the community, and we cannot do the things that would take us backwards. What we have to do is rethink what we've been doing, retool, and I think having the entire governing body work with the city manager so directly helps us get there. So when we do finally come to a point where we can bring that budget to the public, they'll understand the work that went into it. So I think it's important to bring that up at every opportunity that we can. I want to just talk about a couple of things that I did since the last time we visited. As the mayor, I get the privilege of getting invited to a lot of community events. It's important for the community to see that their mayor or their elected representatives, council members, city manager, show up at events that they hold important for their community, either a church group or a nonprofit organization or some other fraternal organization. They like seeing their elected officials at those because they feel like there's a connection then to City Hall and they're not operating in a vacuum. So I was fortunate to be invited to the 10th anniversary celebration of the Love Fellowship Church here in Topeka. And I saw Commissioner Cook there, he was there also. And there were others who were invited to celebrate with them. And I can't tell you how much enjoyment I get out of being invited to those kinds of events because I get to see the community in a place where they really feel comfortable and they want to share it with the city government. So I appreciate Pastor Marcus Clark inviting me there and inviting myself and my wife, and we had a really good time. So that's something that I really want to emphasize, that if there's something that's going on and it's important for you and your organization and you'd like the city to take some recognition of it, just contact my office. We'll try to do everything we can to participate in your joy and in your celebration. One thing I wanted to talk to about, and the the city manager can speak to it a little bit too. We visited again about the priorities that were identified with regards to the unsheltered and homeless. And there were three top priorities, and of the one that we really have been looking at and I think are closest to implementing is the one-stop shop. We really want to move that into a reality because I think we have all the moving parts right now. We just need to put it into some synchronized effort. I know there are some organizations within the city who are doing similar things and efforts, and it's really appreciated. I know that we have the the Rescue Mission working in their population, and as well as Jonathan Sublett working with Scent and what they've been able to do and create. And so the city recognizes its opportunity to move some other things forward. And I think synchronizing and working with them will help us move to that one-stop shop and get it moving. Maybe, I don't know, Robert, if you have some update with regards to that coming from our Kerry Higgins and that group.
So our housing and homeless teams continue to work on the initiatives for the All Hands on Deck as well as the Built for Zero. I know that there's a collaboration across the community as far as those efforts. And so I can tell you that within probably the next month or so, we are going to be briefing with the All Hands on Deck team. I believe they have some plans that they hope to unveil here in the near future. And so I don't want to put out I don't want to take any of their thunder. But I do anticipate some thoughts coming forward here in the next several weeks for consideration.
Good. Well, and like I said, Councilman Duncan is with us today, and he has some information he'd like to share. But before he does one in particular sharing, I'd like for him and the city manager to visit a little bit about some of the updates that are going on in the legislature. Councilman Duncan holds a full-time job representing the League of Municipalities and has done an excellent job. I think we have a good team between him, our city attorney, Amanda Stanley, and our lobbyist, Whitney Dameron. Thank you, Whitney Dameron. We have a real good team up there looking out for the best interests of not just the Topeka, but the cities as a whole as a representative of the League of Municipalities. So I know that there's some things that you'd like to kind of bring up with regards to rentals and the like.
How many hours do we have today?
Yeah.
Right, that's always the question.
Episode 1, season 1.
You want to start with that?
Go ahead, sir.
Well, I think one of the wins to this point is the bill that Topeka introduced regarding inspections for units that receive government funds, right? The idea shouldn't be that you get to take the taxpayers' money to improve the lives of people and then not actually use it the way it was intended. And things out of our control. We can't control the federal government, and we've learned with a couple properties that they weren't holding up their end at times, but we weren't able to get in there due to some state laws. So it's past the first hurdle, and that bill's pretty simple. If you take government funds, you get to let us in the building. What we've stressed with that, which has resonated at the Capitol, is we're not violating Fourth Amendment rights. I still can't go in your individual apartment without your permission. But at least the property as a whole, we now have an opportunity to inspect. We hope. Still got a few hurdles, but it made it through the first one through the House, and now it'll go into the Senate. So that's, I think, a big win. The other one I know that we've advocated for involves our police department and all police departments across the state, allowing you to be 20 years old to take the test, enter the training programs, go through the process. Still have to be 21 to hit the street. But that's important as we try to recruit and retain officers, and so that's also passed. Do you have anything? I'm trying to think what else. There's been a lot. There's been a lot of bills, but those are two that Topeka has put forward that so far are going to be very positive, not just for our community, but lots of others.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to say I'm very excited about potential lowering of the age from as you mentioned, from a recruitment standpoint, but even just to help keep jobs here in the state of Kansas, right? I mean, when other states have ages as low as 18, this gives an opportunity for our local residents, for local Kansans to start their law enforcement careers, just a little bit earlier. So that's very excited about that.
Now, if you want to know one I don't like, as I speak to everyone out there, if you'd like to contact your state senator at any point, it's House Bill 2343, which passed the House, and it relates to opening up what they call the Home-Based Business Act. The problem with that bill is its heart's in the right place. It's trying very hard to make sure that people can continue to operate businesses out of their homes. And there are some cities that maybe have gotten too restrictive. I don't believe Topeka is one of them, although I've asked staff since that bill came up to let's look into some of those to see if tweaks we can make to make sure we're not overburdening. Problem with this bill is if you don't want us to regulate short-term rentals and Airbnbs in your neighborhood, then this bill is for you, right? If you want someone to be able to run a garage next door and not have to apply for fire codes, by the way, because this bill says no one has to adhere to any fire codes anymore, then great, you can have someone running a garage your next door neighbor run a garage without fire codes. If you want someone to sell fireworks out of their garage now without fire codes, this allows it. This bill also says the state can't regulate or license home-based daycares. So It really is a safety for neighborhoods issues, and we get why they want to open up the world to businesses, because we do too here in the city of Topeka. And if you are out there with a home-based business and you feel like we've been a little too restrictive, come talk to us. But this bill would not be good for the majority of our neighborhoods. So that's the one bill that's giving me heartache as a city of Topeka, and I know other cities, because we really do try to find a very clear balance between the rights of people to operate a business out of their home, but also the rights of everybody else who lives in that neighborhood to be safe and have a peaceful neighborhood. So that's the one bill I don't like that could impact the city and how we operate.
Yeah, I think maybe you could some clarity. I think some people are a little worried about the one with regards to the lowering of the age of entering the police academy. They're, well, I don't want a 20-year-old showing up as a police officer. The thing is that they enter the academy, but they have to be 21 to be appointed as a law enforcement officer, correct?
Correct. And to give some context, we talked with the agencies, the unions and the individuals who represent all of the sheriff's departments, the police departments across the state. They have always been opposed to a lowering of the age, even themselves, to say 18 or 19. The reason they are okay with this bill is because it still means you have to be 21 years of age before you're actually on the street. We have individuals who get out of high school and who go 2 years and get an associate's degree, and they're 20 years old, right? They're 18, they're 19, they're about to turn 20. They don't want to do another 2 or 4 years of college. They know what they want to do, and they've gotten an associate's degree geared towards law enforcement. They want to go now do it. This lets them start to take the test at 20, start to get into the program and the training with that education behind them, and then be 21 when they hit the street. So that's where we thought it was a reasonable solution to the problem.
Yeah, and it's not lowering of any standards at all.
Correct.
And that's the other thing that I think people are incorrectly thinking that, well, we're lowering our standards, but it does nothing to the qualifications that they have to meet.
Nope, still got to meet every qualification out there.
Okay. I just wanted to put a little bit of context on it. I appreciate that. One of the other things I wanted to talk to is that I think the public knows that we have our Citizen Government Review Committee. It's in place. It's met at least twice, I believe. And the feedback I'm getting is that they would like a lot of citizen input so they can take them into consideration during their meetings. And if you contact our website, or even contact the mayor's office through Jane Murray, my executive assistant, she will work to try and get those comments or those links to you so that you can make sure that you're observing and being participants in this effort, because although it's a set committee, they're going to make recommendations that could affect our current form of government. So everybody has a stake in this. So if you've got something you want to share it with that committee. If you know them individually, you can call the mayor's office and they will give you a list of the names that you can contact if there's somebody you want to visit with directly. But I encourage you to follow this effort because it's important for us. It sets the tone for what will be a form of government in the future. It may be very similar to what we have now, which would be my guess with a few tweaks, but you still want to be able to have that input and that opportunity to do that. So I wanted to bring that up. And then there's an important announcement, and this is the one that I asked Councilman Duncan to be here for, and that is with regards to our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. There has been some significant movement. Myself and the councilman have talked, as well as with city manager, and we want to put this on a timeline per se, so we can get moving on some of the recommendations, opportunities that fund brings to us. So, Councilman, if you could share an update.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think everybody knows that affordable housing is a priority for this city. You can see that in a lot of changes we've made through our permitting processes, through our departments, as we look at different public input sessions. And a piece of that has been the creation of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. A while back, the mayor and I sit down and we both agreed it has got to be a priority to activate that fund. Dr. Perez got here and he said the same thing. You've got this housing trust fund. When are we going to get it done? Let's go. And he was right, and we've really worked hard. Our planning director, Rhiannon Friedman, and her staff have really worked hard over the last year. Sometimes you have a choice. You can do stuff fast, and that's great, but sometimes you got to slow down to get it right. And that's kind of where we've been with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It's a very complicated process, and if you don't get it right, you're going to spend the money really fast, and then you're not going to have any long-term viability. And so our work has been, the three of us, Rhiannon and her staff, to make sure that once we start it, it's ready to actually remain viable. We believe we're finally at that point. So we sort of have a timeline now of an actual activation timeline, if you want to call it that. Next month, I think at our last meeting in March, we need to run some technical changes. Some of it's because of federal and state law changes. Some of it's because title changes within the city and board changes. But it'll be a technical change of the ordinance. We'll run that at the end of March. First meeting in April, we will appoint the members who have been volunteering. We're doing some confirmations to make sure they're all still on board, but we'll get them appointed that first meeting in April. And then they plan to meet in May. And so that board will convene in May and start their work. What that work will look like will be in part up to them, but then in part with discussions that we've had with other communities that run affordable housing trust funds, give them some background and information. And there we go, we'll be off. There's still a lot of work to be done. So as I've told everyone who's interested in serving on that board, this is gonna be a working board. It's not just you show up once a month and say, that's great, let's spend some money, right? And let's build some houses. That'll be part of it. But it is going to be a working board, but it's going to make a difference in this community in getting affordable housing built. And so I'm looking forward to it. So we were just glad to be able to finally tell the public there is a timeline, there is a plan, and it is moving forward.
Well, thank you, Spencer. The councilman has done an awful lot of work on this, and he shared the information with me, and I thought it'd be more appropriate that he bring it to the public because he's put so much time and work into it. So thank you again for that. And I think we've covered almost all of our topics on the agenda. The final thing I want to do today is that as I go through the community, I get a lot of questions about whether or not I'm going to run for re-election. And it's encouraging to hear people talk about the city in a positive way. Not so much me, but the city. They stress how they've seen a vibrancy, a vitality, an excitement for our city. People want to move forward. I think the words that we used when we had the last State of the Community conference was to be bold. And the business community has done that. They've stepped up and done some things that I think they're encouraged to do because of the feeling of the community and the expectations that the community continue in a positive way. Certainly not everybody is pleased with everything. You're never going to find a place on this face of the earth that they'll be pleased with about everything. But I think Topeka has really come a long way, and it's due to the efforts of the people who live here and the people who have taken time to serve on the council. And it's important for us to keep that momentum going forward. I think the Greater Topeka Partnership has helped keeping that in front of us. The Greater Topeka Partnership momentum effort, I think, keeps people engaged. And so I want to say that it has been really, truly a privilege and an honor to be serving the city in my capacity. It's been a lot of fun. I know people might think that's a funny way to put it, but it is fun to meet people in their own place, to meet people where they are and want to work with you and not against you to make the city come forward. So it's important for me to let people know where I am and where I stand is with regards to my current position with the city. After a lot of discussion, a lot of hand-wringing, but at the same time, a lot of joy in making a decision, I've decided not to run for a second term. So I just want people to know that right up front. For those people who might want to seek the office, this gives you an opportunity to step up and get involved directly. There are a lot of elections that are coming up on the council for this year, and so it's important for me to let people know where I stand. I will work continually throughout this year to do as much as I can while I am in the position of mayor. I have been very fortunate to have a very good council to work with, and that makes things go a lot easier, but at the same time, it makes it more effective because no one person, including me, has the best ideas for this city. So to have that input from everyone is extremely important. I appreciate the contacts that I've had as mayor and as council member, because that's where it starts, where you get your feet wet and let's get to know people and get to know where they are in the community, and have people come up to you and say, we want to be a part of the success of this community. So this will be my formal announcement. There won't be anything, another press conference beyond this. So I just wanted to make that as part of this announcement today. So Unless there's any questions or anything that we have to additionally we want to share, I want to thank everybody who has supported me as a councilman and as mayor. I want to thank those who sometimes don't support me, because it makes me think back whether or not I'm doing the right thing or going in the right direction. So everybody has been a part of my service to the city. And it's something that, believe me, it's hard to walk away from, but it's important to have other people get the opportunity to do it as well. Thank you very much. And we'll have any questions.
Mayor, City Manager, back to your point, talking about the unsheltered. We received comments on social media just from nonprofits and whatnot talking about how the city had said, you know, that they were stepping in and they were there and whatnot, and the nonprofits and people that have been there constantly were kind of saying, we haven't seen any of this. So I was just kind of wondering, has the city talked to any of the nonprofits as far as the warming centers that we had last week?
I know city manager has.
Yeah, I mean, since last October,
Yeah.
I mean, we attended meetings, worked on necessary permits for some of those warming shelters that didn't have permits. I mean, we stepped up quickly to get those up and running. I can tell you specifically for like the rescue mission, we had intake people there helping. We had TPD folks going by, checking the area. Anytime there was an issue, whether it be emergency or whatnot, I mean, fire was always there. We prioritize snow cleanups, like at the rescue mission. Now, granted, I understand there's other warming centers other than the rescue mission, but I mean, I think we did a pretty decent job as far as supporting the warming centers.
I know personally that I received texts asking for specific assistance, and I forwarded them to the city manager and followed up on it, and he told me what he was doing and what actions he had been taking. So we've been responsive. I don't know where they haven't seen anything. It's because if you're not there actually seeing it, maybe you assume it's not being done. But there's a lot that has been done to support the efforts across the city. And we continue to do that. And I think if you will check my comments sometimes after council meeting, I've asked the public themselves, if you see somebody in distress, do something about it. Call the police department. It's not like it's a non-action. It's just a topic of conversation. We are acting on those things that we can do something with to help people. Any other questions?
As the weather's getting warmer, how are you guys looking as far as potholes are concerned?
Knew there'd be a pothole.
I am so surprised that you would ask about potholes a week after all the snow melts. Well, I've seen crews out already. Even in my neighborhood and in other places, I've seen crews out already patching the holes that they can. And I know they're going to be aggressive as they were last year. If you remember last year, we had pretty much an all hands on deck to do what we could to fill all the potholes. But yeah, they're an expectation. We know they're going to happen with the freezing and the cold that we had. They're going to be there. And I encourage people to use that See-Click Fix. That's the primary locator of the problem places in our city that we utilize in trying to address those. So be patient. When you see crews out there, don't try and buzz by them at 50 miles an hour while they're trying to do the job that you're asking them to do. Be careful with them out there. So we're addressing that already. They're out there in force, but I know that it's a frustrating thing. I dodge the same potholes everybody else does.
And I'd also just mention, keep in mind that the material that our crews are currently using is temporary cold mix. You use that typically when the asphalt plants are closed, and that cold mix, I mean, it's very susceptible to water. I mean, I know sometimes people might say, well, they're just putting, asphalt into a hole or something that, it may still be wet. I mean, we're thawing out, obviously. But the cold mix that's used is really a temporary measure until our asphalt plants open, typically around April timeframe, to which that point we get access to hot mix, which is more of a permanent fix when it comes to potholes. So just keep in mind if you see a crew that fills a pothole today, it might pop out in the next week or two. But again, just keep calling us and once we get access to that asphalt, that hot asphalt mix, that's typically where you see a more permanent repair.
City Manager, as far as the budget, just want to go back to that real quick. I know that you had talked a little bit about restructuring the debt and what that looks like as far as reductions, vacant positions, and the hiring freeze. Could you kind of expand on that just a little bit as far as maybe what people can expect, like going into the following months? Is that going to have any like initial hard-hitting impact right now?
So particularly when it comes to the hiring freeze, we will evaluate whether or not we need to fill that position, or if there's opportunities for us to maybe do something a little bit different and see if there's staff capacity to absorb some of those duties. And so it's really just trying to rethink, the position and whether or not we can absorb it with existing staff. Sometimes you do have those opportunities. Sometimes it's even in different departments. I mean, we're, as mentioned, working very closely with City Council, and at some point we'll probably end up doing a position by position review with City Council. But for us, it's really just a matter of asking the question, hey, so we've had this position on the books for 10 years, and maybe there's some technology or something that maybe we can use to, instead of filling a position, maybe there's some technology that we recently implemented that might allow us to not fill it and just absorb it through existing staff. So those are some of the things that we'll be looking at here in the very near future, particularly as mentioned, as we go through the hiring freeze. So yeah, it's going to be, we're going to be very, very detailed and look into those details as we, decide whether or not we fill positions, if we look to reduce them, or even if there might even be opportunities where another department might be able to pick up something. So those are all things that we'll be looking at here in the next several months.
Is there any sort of timeline on that, or you mentioned earlier on the restructuring of the debt? Is there any kind of timeline that you guys are looking for as far as that?
Yeah, everything that we're doing is going to be geared towards working our proposed budget for FY 2026. So typically our balanced budget is due to the state by September 30th. Over the next several months, again, we typically don't start our budget process till May, June timeframe. But as mentioned, I think given the challenges that we're facing, the governing body has been very engaged with us as far as ensuring that they know the details as much as we do on the positions, on our revenues, on everything, which I'm very appreciative of, because it's hopefully, God willing, going to make the budget process a little less tedious, if you will. When I say that, I'm hoping by the time we hit June or July, we already have a proposed budget together that's been vetted by the City Council, that we've had opportunity for public feedback on, and that we're ahead of the game.
If I could make a comment, with regards to what the city manager is talking about restructuring, reorganization, if necessary, I know I'm going to make sure that what we do is not, and I'm sure that this isn't in the city manager's head, send a message to the public that there's going to be wholesale a release of people. Hiring freeze means that we just don't add more people. It just means that we become more efficient with the people that we have. And a position review won't be, as long as I'm here, anything that has been experienced by the public in the United States right now. So just make that clear. Just my 2 cents. Councilman?
Well, I always have thoughts. That's dangerous.
I know.
I don't want to be the guy you invited to the party who then you regret inviting to the party.
Well, you'll come back.
A couple of things. I think, first of all, the first part of your question is the 25 budget's set. So none of these should have an immediate impact on anybody because we've set that budget. As the city manager said, the goal is to start working on 26. I know he has told us and his staff have told us that if they can find savings throughout 25 as we enter into 26, then great, because those will be great carryovers. And so I know they're working on that. I think what a lot of us on the council have expressed to the city manager, and he's been receptive to it. I know he announced that we're going to have some workshops and public sessions, is you shouldn't have to do this every year, But every once in a while, you do have to literally crack open that budget and go line by line, and it's hard and it's tedious and it takes hours, but it's what you have to do sometimes. And through that process, you can start to find, some savings that you can then carry over and realize, okay, that deficit's not as scary as we thought it was. We're not going to find it all in doing that process, but I think that's a part of it, and I know city manager knows, and I say this all the time, we are elected to take on that responsibility. There are 10 of us who are elected to be a part of that group that takes on that responsibility, and we're here to do that. And we've told the city manager that, and I know he's appreciative of that, I think, that we're willing to do the hard work too. So I think we'll all be involved in not just putting this on staff and saying, figure it out. We're ready to get in the room and start doing the work. And so what that is going to look like in the next 7 months, we'll see. That's going to be the real challenge. But I'm glad we're all moving in that direction, that we're committed to doing that.
Spencer, you're really involved in the community and everything. Are you throwing your hat into the ring for mayor?
I appreciate the question, but today is Mayor Padilla's day. That was his announcement, and that's where the focus should be. And then tomorrow and beyond, people can worry about that question.
I have another question for you, Spencer. For the Affordable Housing Fund, specifically, what does that kind of look like as you start to activate it? Do you have any preliminary plans on what housing looks like?
So yes and no, right? We've got $1 million in that fund as of now, which took a while to get there. That sounds like a lot. It's not once you actually start spending it. So the committee's going to have a couple charges as they get into it. And the first is to help us find long-term funding sources. It can't all be, if you look at any successful program, it can't all be tax dollars. It has to be a public-private relationship. And so we're going to need some work from that board and the community to bring in some of those matching public dollars. That's going to be part of that to make it work. In terms of the housing, and the committee board will have some input into this, but I can tell you our vision in internal conversations has been to really focus on building affordable houses. There are some trust funds, and it doesn't work as well, who use it maybe as gap funding for rent or for landlord types. We don't envision it that way. We have, and I'll use very simple numbers because it's easier in my head. We have neighborhoods where let's say that the average home value is $85,000, $95,000. A new home build right now is $200,000 for just a basic home. In some homes, if you build a 3D home, you can get it down to $175,000. If I'm a developer, there's no profit in going and building that home in that community as an infill unless I can at least break even and help the community. The affordable housing trust funds that are successful help with that gap funding. They work with the developers to say, okay, we can help fill some of that gap with some of this money. You've got to put in your part too. And then we can finally build affordable housing in our neighborhoods instead of going and building these all new, huge complexes all across the city. Those are great too. If someone comes and build them, let's go do it. But that's how we're going to build more affordable housing. So I'll be fascinated to see if the board that we appoint is also wants to swim in that direction, but I know that's where we're headed, is use the dollars to specifically assist with actual building of affordable homes.
How soon, once the board starts meeting, will the project start to be?
There's no way to answer that at this point. I think there's going to be a learning curve for them, probably a little time. They're going to want to get some information, talk with our staff about what that process looks like. They'll have input into how often they want to meet, right? There's a reason it's a citizen-driven board and not supposed to be driven by us, because they're going to know better the needs of the community, which is the whole point. It'll be a diverse board. It'll be able to work on a regular basis with the community. So a lot of that really is going to be up to them, because if we try to tell them how to do it, again, it's not going to work. Right? Government is great, but it can only do so much. The reason you include citizens in the process is because it needs to be from community driven, not top down.
Okay, one thing I neglected to do, and I want to make sure I do it, is when I announced that I was going to run for mayor, my wife was there with me, and she's here today. And I appreciate her being here today when I made my announcement that I would not seek re-election. So thank you, Veronica, for being here. And thank you, Jane, for being here as well. Jane helps keep me in place and keeps the guardrails on me so that I can get through a day and a week. And I'm sure she'll be busy in the rest of this year. So thank you both for being here. And unless there are other questions, I thank you for being here. Have a good day.